Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to the Nighttime Show podcast, and we are talking to you right now separately, but we are together in spirit. Isn't that right, Matt Walker?
From each other's bedrooms.
Yes, we are in each other's. We are
Well, I
in
mean,
each other's bed.
well,
We're not in each other's
no,
bedrooms.
we're both in our own bedrooms.
We're in our own bedrooms. We're not doing a bedroom swap. That's a whole. We have to wait for that. That's a different apocalypse.
Yes.
We have a very special guest today. This was an interview that was recorded previous to
it was like a couple
coronavirus.
weeks before everything went crazy in the world.
Yeah, BC. It was BC
Before Corona. Yeah.
So this was an interview that we did with one of my musical theater heroes, Adam Pascal, from the original cast of the musical Rent. And the reason that we had him on the show, there's a story that happened, and we didn't talk about it on the podcast, so we thought we would just get it out front. That way you guys could hear the story.
Yeah, because we referenced the story in the show, and I realized when I was editing that we didn't tell the story on the show, so people might be confused.
Yeah, so here is the story. The story is that I was a huge fan of Rent in 1995, 1996 when the musical came out. I couldn't wait to go to New York and audition for the show. And the true story is that I went to New York. I went to a musical theater school in New York called AMDA, the American Musical Dramatic Academy. And they said, do not audition while you're going to this school. Do not audition. They don't like their students to audition because they don't want to lose their students to the Broadway world, until they're ready.
Yeah.
And also they don't want them to stop paying tuition,
Yes.
know? But I didn't listen. I went to the open call, the big open call for Rent on Broadway, and I waited in line.
So Rent had been on for 5-6 years?
At that point it had been on for a few years. This is 1999. So 98, 99. So I went out for the Broadway cast, and to audition for the Broadway cast, you had to go to an open call. So I went to an open call, and it was a cattle call, and we all stood out on the street. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people standing on the street, and I stood on the street for approximately 20 hours waiting to audition for Rent on Broadway with all sorts of other people. I mean, I got there in the middle of the night and then waited all night and all day to be able to get my chance. And when I finally got into the theater to go up and sing in front of these people, I sang a song. I believe I sang the song Jeremy by Pearl Jam. And then I finished singing a couple bars, and the lady said, thank you so much. And I said, that's it? And she said, yep, that's it. And I said, but was it good? And she goes, yeah, you sound fine. And I go, okay, so is there going to be a callback, or am I cut? And she was like, you're just not what we're looking for. And I said, why not? Why can't I? What's wrong with me for this show?
Plenty.
And she said,
there's plenty wrong.
She said, there's no fat people in Rent. Those words exactly. There's no, it was, and I'm not kidding you. It blew my mind. I mean, when she said it, of course, I was like, my feelings got hurt. I felt offended, you know. But then, after a very short amount of time, it sunk in. I thought about it, and I was like, she's right. There are no fat people in this show. There's no fat men in this show, and that became a huge lesson to me in musical theater and in acting and in auditioning and all sorts of stuff, that just because you love a role doesn't mean that you're right for that role.
Not everybody can play everything they want to.
No, because if they could, I would star in The King and I, but I'm not starring in The King and I, and there is a reason for that.
You are bald enough for the role.
I am bald enough. That is 100% right. But I've always loved the musical Grease, but I do not look like anyone that should be in Grease.
Yeah, you're no Danny Zuko. Yeah.
I'm no Danny Zuko.
You're no Barry Bostwick.
I don't look like I could be Teen Angel. I'm completely wrong.
You could be the car Grease Lightning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks a lot. Just because you can sing it and you can kill it doesn't mean that you should do it.
Well, that's an important story for us to know going into the show with Adam Pascal, because we reference that story, but we don't say what it is, and then he talks about it and you talk about it, but we don't say what the story is. So now people know.
Well, now you know I'm too fat for Rex. All right, let's listen to the Nighttime Show podcast. Let's listen to the show right now.
Nighttime Show, the Nighttime Show, Nighttime Show. Live from the Improv in the heart of Hollywood, it's the Nighttime Show. With us as always, our producer and head writer, Matt Walker. I'm the voice of the Nighttime Show, Mike Black. We have a very special guest today, the Tony-nominated star of School of Rock, SLC Punk, son of a bitch. And that was punk rock at school. And both the stage and screen versions of Rent, Adam Pascal.
Hey.
And now, 525,600 calories is how we judge our host, Mr. Stephen Kramer Glickman.
Yeah, you better believe it. Hey, everybody, how we doing? Hi, hello.
Hi.
Adam.
Hi. Hello there.
This is a real treat.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is a real treat.
It's a treat for me. Thank you.
Every once in a while on our show, we'll have somebody where one of us is kind of a bigger nerd than the rest of us. Like when we had Michael Dorn on the show from Star Trek.
That would be me as the biggest nerd.
I could hardly contain myself.
Yeah, he was.
I'd be the
had
same
trouble-
way.
Yeah,
I would be the same
He
way.
asked him a couple of questions, including stuff like, which is Worf's favorite brother? Like which?
Well, I asked who was a better brother for Worf. Was it Tony Todd?
Tony Todd. I actually did Aida with Tony Todd. He came in and played Amonasero for about 4 months when I was doing Aida.
God.
Yeah, back in the.
So I
early
gave him the option of
2000s.
Tony Todd or Paul Sorvino because they both played his brothers.
I would say Tony Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Although
picked
I
Tony
also did a movie with Paul Sorvino.
Yeah.
Did you really?
I did.
What
We went to
movie
Paul
was that?
Sorvino's house.
We
Yeah,
did.
that apartment over on that one. That,
Yeah.
The one right over here
Yeah,
in
yeah.
West Hollywood. And,
Yes.
he made us lunch while we did a podcast.
From
with
the
him.
movie, from
Yeah.
Goodfellas.
Yeah.
He made
Oh.
us the lunch, and then he sang opera while it was
Yes,
doing
he
it.
loves the opera.
Yeah,
he would
he
sing
really
it on set all the time.
Yeah.
And it was
What-
actually a musical.
What movie was it?
It was called The Devil's Carnival. It was called The Devil's Carnival, Alleluia, and it was directed by Darren Bousman, who directed a number of the Saw movies and who has also directed the new Saw reboot.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was this wild musical, and it was so much fun. And Paul Sorvino played God, and I played like his right-hand man.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's on Netflix, I believe, and
it's called The Devil's Carnival.
The Devil's
That's
Carnival,
a great title.
Alleluia, because there's a Devil's Carnival 1. So this is sort of like Devil's Carnival 2.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Worth checking out, you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than to see me.
Yeah, of course.
I love knowing that there are fans listening to this going, how do those dumb bastards not know about Devil's Carnival 1?
No, believe me, I think I'm the only one that knows about Devil's Carnival. Yeah.
Well, as a musical theater nerd who grew up doing musical theater, I did 4 musicals a year from the
Wow.
time I was in the 2nd grade till the time I left high school and went off to the American Musical Dramatic Academy. First, the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yes.
And then a graduate from the American Musical Dramatic Academy.
Congratulations.
Where they told us, you will not, under any circumstances, audition for anything while you're in school.
That's actually very common in
Yeah.
in performing arts schools. They don't let the kids audition for anything.
Yeah,
Why not?
Well, for a few reasons. They don't want to lose the students to some Broadway show,
fame and fortune.
But also, they don't want. Yeah, they don't also want you going out there and being like, "Yeah, I'm a student at this school," and be be terrible and like not know what you're doing and ruin the relationships,
And
but
the reputation of the school.
Yeah, the reputation of the school.
Sure.
But mostly,
Or come back to school with a bunch of bullshit that you learned out in the real world.
Yeah, that's all. There's a lot of reasons. Most of the reasons are because I don't think they want to lose their talent.
All it takes is one kid coming back and going, "Fuck all this! What you really need is an agent.
Yeah,
A really good agent."
Yeah.
You know?
yeah.
And a lot of Instagram followers.
Yeah, exactly.
My first experience with the musical Rent in 1996. The musical comes out on Broadway.
Yes.
After being at New York Theater Workshop, the story of Jonathan Larson passing away rocks the entire musical theater world all the way to the fringe edges in our little tiny town of Carlsbad, California, where I was part of a children's community theater called Coast Kids Theater.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On behalf of the people listening that may not be musical theater nerds, was Jonathan Larson a well-known figure in the musical theater world?
He was not. He had done a musical prior to that called Tick Tick Boom, I think, or something like this.
Which is a movie being made by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh, wow.
Who is a huge fan of Jonathan Larson and was hugely influenced by him and his work.
Yeah. Oh, he was still like a newer voice in the musical theater world. It'd be like, what was Lin-Manuel's first?
In the Heights.
In the Heights.
Yes,
so,
but Tick Tick Boom was nowhere nearly as successful as In the Heights.
Right. So it'd be like if Lin-Manuel passed away right before In the Heights opened, like basically,
right?
Like so it'd be like, or like if he had, it was like if it'd be like if all we got from Lin-Manuel was that and not Hamilton.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Okay.
That makes some more sense. And,
Sure.
and yeah, I mean, all right. So as here's
For you, Matt, it would be as if Zachary Quinto died moments before the new Star Trek was released.
Oh, I only wish. No,
wow.
it would have.
Come
It would have
on.
made it so
Shots
they.
fired.
It would have made it so they wouldn't have made the terrible second and third ones that were even worse.
I liked them.
He's got J.J. Abrams problems over here. This
He
guy's
tried to
got-
get me to see Star Wars last night. I'm like, no, J.J. Abrams touched it. I will not do anything he touches anymore.
He's
I won't
got
go see him.
real J.J. problems.
Was there one particular J.J. Abrams experience
Star
that
Trek.
turned you again? Really?
He blew up Vulcan. Done.
Well, yeah,
I'm out.
That's true.
I'm
He
out.
did.
Like I have no interest in anything he does from now on.
How have we turned this conversation into a fucking Star Trek conversation?
That would
again?
be my fault that happened.
Jesus. All right, so real quick.
It was not worth the joke I made
No.
to go that
No,
far
it's
down the rabbit
really-
hole.
It's sad.
Have
It's
you
very
seen
sad.
Picard? No.
Yes.
We don't have to get
Oh,
off.
He
until-
loves it. He's a big fan.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
No, he is. He's a big fan. Okay, but here's the quick story.
Wait, I'm sorry. I just have to make the
Yeah.
Rent Star Trek connection. Anthony Rapp is on
Yes.
Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now,
so
wait.
there you go.
Yes.
We don't have to talk about it anymore.
Wait, but I want to ask something important about that.
Yes.
You mentioned that you're a big Star Trek fan.
Yes, I am.
Does he rub your nose in it? Does he call like every now and again and go, doing another sweet Star Trek thing?
No. He's
I
a
would.
very kind man.
So he call you up and be like, I'm hanging out with Doug Jones dressed as Saru. What do you think? I'm over here with Captain Pike, Anson Mount. What do you have to do?
I don't have the same connection to those characters as I do to the Next Generation characters.
Oh,
okay.
So, you know.
Oh yeah. Those guys were great.
I have a lot of Star Trek
By the way,
connections, but we don't have to get into
so
it.
what you're
I
saying
want to
is-
know
We'll talk
all
later.
of the Star
Yes.
Trek connections. Yes.
So
Well,
what
I
you're
did-
saying is you're available for Picard
I sure
should
am.
the work show up.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I did a musical performance with Brent Spiner.
So did
Oh.
I.
Yeah, you
Love
did.
Brent
We did a musical theater like charity event
Yes,
together.
so did I.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was the same one that Jason Alexander was on. Were you there for that?
No.
Oh my god! And Jason Alexander showed up wearing a tuxedo with a fanny pack, and Brent Spiner and me and everyone else was like, "Why is he?" It's like, "This is such a funny move," you know. And we all commented on it, and he was like, "This is where I keep my wallet." And I'm like, he was dead serious.
Was
Yeah.
this pre or post hair surgery for Jason Alexander?
I think it was pre-hair surgery.
Okay.
I didn't even
Yeah.
know he had that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He got hair.
Yeah.
Did he?
Well,
That baby got hair.
My
now.
favorite Jason Alexander hair thing was he did the Tonight Show with Jay Leno when Seinfeld was still on, and he went on with a full wig on, and he goes on, and Jay's like, "What's with the hair?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "No, you got a full head of hair." And he's like, "Oh, I'm an actor with hair. I just happen to play a bald character." And he's like, goes on this whole thing about the bald cap they have to put on him every day at work and stuff. And it was so funny.
That's a good bit.
Yeah.
That's a really good bit. When it comes to the Rent origin story, and you and I connecting online, I thought that story of me auditioning for Rent was my first time, having anything like this happen. Yeah. And then I was reminded after I posted that by my friend Chris Loosman, who works on the show Come From Away on Broadway.
Sure,
He's the sound and lighting engineer on the show, has been since before it opened. I was reminded by him that him and I auditioned for Rent at La Jolla Playhouse, where Neil Patrick Harris played the role.
Right. So that would have been for not the first national tour, or maybe it was I can't remember if it was the first. It might have been the first national tour.
It's somewhere in there, and so it's like this is '97. Maybe?
Yeah, then it probably was the
that?
first national tour.
And so I remember being like, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I remember that, and us auditioning, and all of us being like, wrong for it and stuff, but waiting in line and trying to get seen.
Did you audition for a particular role?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think it was just for the open call part of
It wasn't
the
the trash can on fire?
It wasn't the trash. Yeah. We'll get to that. They ended up but then while talking to him, he was like, "Oh, you don't remember when we sang What You Own together?" And I was like, "No, when did we do that?" He goes, "We sang What You Own." This is how far Rent reached at its height. This is one way of measuring it. At a event on a golf course in San Diego, California, where people are paying thousands of dollars to go play golf, me and this buddy of mine dressed up as characters from Rent, and we sang What You Own at each other, very angry, okay, in front of a bunch of people in golf shirts on the golf course, like on the green.
Were you asked to do this?
It was for like a charity fundraiser for the Children's Musical Theater Company or whatever.
Right.
But just that it was like that far off base that it was like, you guys are doing this very serious thing with very serious themes, and then we're like, yeah, we feel you, man, and we're like on a golf course yelling songs at each other.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I've had one experience at a country club. And it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I was playing a gig, actually coincidentally, with Daphne Rubin Vega, who played the original Mimi. And I was playing a combination of like theater stuff and my own originals. And so I announced one of my original songs. I said to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to play one of my original songs from my new record. And somebody in the front row goes, "That's not what we're here for."
Whoa! Really?
Yeah, I've had a lot of crazy on-stage experiences. Always centered around like my own gigs.
Really?
Yeah.
Do people? I'm sure people expect you to, when you're performing, to do a song or something from the show.
Yeah, of course. And that was probably at I had a new record out, so I wanted to play stuff from the new record.
Yeah.
But of course I integrated some musical theater stuff as well, but that's not what he wanted.
Wow.
Yeah. I like to think he went to a few shows where they just didn't do their standards, and he'd just been burned enough times.
So
maybe he was like me.
No, I'm putting my foot down.
He felt like me, where I went to go see Iron Maiden in like 2003, and they're like, "We're playing our entire new record for you," and then at the end they played like one medley of like 666
Run to the Hills
and Run to the Hills,
yes.
and like I was like, we just listened to an hour of your new stuff, and you gave us like
you remember
one song.
When Matt and me went to go see AC/DC perform, and then those guys just do the hits,
Yeah, great
and
show.
they're crushing it at the Forum, right? And in the middle of the show, there was a guy behind us, and he just kept yelling
and
out.
we're in the rafters, by the way.
Yeah, we're like a mile away from the stage.
At the loudest concert I've ever been to in my entire life.
Yeah, and this guy behind us just keeps going. What was the song? Do you remember?
He's like, it wasn't even like
it was like Blood Masher or
no,
something.
He's like play Long Way to the Top or whatever,
Yeah,
like a song like we know they're not going to play, like a great song.
They were just yelling.
Yeah.
and then we were laughing on the drive home, being like, they never played the song, and it was like, this guy on his way home is just depressed, and he gets home, and his roommate's like, "Hey, did they play Long Way to the Top?" And he's like, no. And like, did you yell and annoy everyone around you? Yes, of course. And they still didn't play it.
You mentioned Iron Maiden. Bruce Dickinson was the guy I grew up trying to sound like. He was my.
That makes a lot of sense.
He was my hero. Him and Ronnie James Dio. Like those were my metal guys that I just tried to emulate. Yeah.
So wizard rock, you were into. You were
As my songs about fairies.
As my friend Craig Coleman calls it.
Swords and dragons.
Sorcery.
It's
You
like
can make anything sound cool, though. You can make wizards and dragons sound cool.
Well, so did Ronnie.
Yeah.
that whole genre was just a Dungeons and Dragons game being
really
sung in metal format.
Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah.
You know.
My buddy tried to describe a concert that he went to with Dio, and I was so unfamiliar with it that I was like, oh, he's taking some bad acid. He was like, no, he slayed a dragon with his guitar on stage. And I was like, what? No, that can't be right.
Well, I saw like Dio with the Black Sabbath reunion, Heaven and Hell was great.
Yeah.
Do that. But I used to work for his cousin Mark Dio.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Mark
He plays
Dio.
guitar. Yep, my old boss.
Yeah, worked at Circuit City, I believe.
Sam Goody.
Yeah, Sam Goody.
He did used to run the Marantz Corporation.
Oh,
Who made high-end speakers back in the 80s. Yeah.
I just thought of something you could have done with that guy. Is I used to go on the road with Andrew Dice Clay, and people would yell out, "Do the nursery rhymes! Do the nursery rhymes!" And he came backstage one day, and he was like, "What do they want me to? If I do those, there's nowhere to go."
Right.
Yeah.
And one day he did. He got fed up, and it was about 5 minutes into his act. Someone, do the rhymes, do the rhymes. So he starts doing the rhymes, and he, ladies and gentlemen, good night. And that was the end of the show.
That's actually kind of a
Like,
weird thing to
motherfucker.
do at a comedy club. It's sort of
Yeah.
like yelling, at George Carlin, like, let's hear the 7 dirty words. Ow!
Yeah, exactly.
I've always had a theory. There's a lot of bands that are known for one song, one-hit wonders, right? I've always said if they play a concert, they should open with the hit, play 2 other songs, play the hit again, play 2 other songs, play the hit acoustic version, play 2 more songs, play the hit to close the concert, go backstage, wait for an encore, come back out, play it one last time.
hit.
You hear it like 5 times, but everyone would be happy. Nobody would be sad about that in any way.
Oh, yeah.
You do that one version of it where you name check all the stuff in the
Yeah,
city. And,
everything. You say shout outs to everyone like you do the extended version. That would be great.
And then Smash Mouth just drives their bus off a cliff at the end. Is that what happens?
Because they play All Star 10 times
Yeah,
in
exactly.
one night. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. You grew up in New York City. Is
I
that where
did.
you're
New York
from?
City. My parents were divorced. My dad lived in New York City in Manhattan on 35th Street, and my mom and stepfather on Long Island in Syosset, Long Island.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Did you grow up doing music and
I grew up
theater?
playing in rock bands. I did not do theater.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Doing musical theater was never. It was never in my thoughts. It never occurred to me that just to pursue that. I had such tunnel vision to play in a rock band. I just wanted to be Bruce Dickinson. I wanted to be John Bon Jovi. I wanted to be any of the rock stars of the '80s. I mean, those were my guys, and so that was the path that I was on.
How did that path diverge?
So it was the mid '90s. I finally broke up with a band that I'd been playing with really like through high school and college. And
Similar to School of Rock.
Similar to School.
You were in.
And by the way, I just need to correct something. I really wasn't the star of School of Rock. I was sort of I had a smaller part, but I
know,
appreciate.
but you're in it.
Sure,
You're in there.
I am in
Yeah,
it.
I-
Yes,
yeah,
and I
I
do get
remember.
recognized every once in a while. But so anyway, so I broke up with this band, and I'm sure as a musical theater nerd, you know Idina Menzel.
Of course.
Yeah. So Idina and I grew up down the street from each other.
Whoa.
Yes. And so I've known her since the 3rd grade. We went to the same elementary school and junior high school and high school and everything. And so she called me up and said she was doing this off-Broadway musical, and they were looking for a particular type of performer for this role of Roger. They couldn't find it, and they were opening up the casting to sort of an open casting call. She thought of me and called me up and said, "Do you want to go in an audition?" And I was sort of at a bit of a crossroads in my life, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I just said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go in and give it a shot." And I said, "What do you have to do?" She said, "Go in with your guitar and just play a song or 2." And that's what I did. I went in and I played the Red Hill Mining Town, which is a song off of U2's Joshua Tree.
What does that sound? Can you give us? I know you're
From father to son, the blood runs thin. Ooh, see faces frozen stare against the wind.
Oh yeah. You got the part.
But then it gets
I'll give you the
big.
part.
Then
Yeah.
it gets big, and
Yeah.
he sings loud, and So I
Yeah.
kind of gave them a taste of the soft, and then a taste of the big. And,
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, which sounds like my wedding night, actually.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Buzzing.
Was the how far along was the show at that point, like music wise? Like, was it all put together, or was he
the show had
writing?
the show had a actually had another earlier workshop in 2004 with an entirely different cast, a much smaller version of the workshop. Daphne Rubin Vega and Anthony Rapp were part of that. They were the only ones who. Oh, and maybe Toby Parker. I think that those three might have been part of that. Anyway, so it was in ready to go. It was ready to go in terms of like to do a production off Broadway.
Right. And this is 95.
This is it was cast. Yes, so we started rehearsals the winter of the end December of 95.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Jonathan Larson passed away 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later. So was the show from the time that he passed away to the time that it opened on Broadway?
Yeah.
What's that?
So let's see.
Like?
Excuse me. We played for maybe 2 months off Broadway
at the
New York Theater Workshop. Jonathan passed away the night of our open dress rehearsal, so it was right before
the workshop.
No. Well, at home, but
I mean when the show was still in the
open
workshop.
dress rehearsal before the first performance at the workshop. Yes, and then we opened on Broadway. April 24th of 96. So it was a very short time span between playing off Broadway and ending up on Broadway. It just exploded.
Was
the
show already planned to go to Broadway?
No. Of course it was. No. It was going to be a 4-6 week off Broadway run. You could they had no idea what was going to become of it.
So just to kind of put this in good, kind, respectful words of this particular situation. So the show is a great show. It's a phenomenal show.
Yes.
Lots of great music and a phenomenal storyline, great acting, and great music, right? How much of an effect does Jonathan passing have to do with the move from it being in the workshop to being on Broadway and becoming as big a thing? Is it
a huge
story?
effect?
Like, did they give it a ton of like all of a sudden where he's like, oh, there's this show, this guy just died? Did they give you like a ton of press you weren't expecting?
I only say because I remember hearing about the show
true.
in San Diego because he had died. Like that was the news.
Absolutely,
that reached us.
It certainly shook up the world of musical theater, and also him dying was so closely connected to the subject matter of the show, which is about young people dying early and dying, in sort of the prime of their life. And so it was just so unbelievably heartbreaking, but yes, it had a huge effect on the attention that the show got. Now, if the show was crappy, it would have gotten all that attention and people would have come and said, oh, yeah, it's sad that he died, but this show's kind of crappy.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean? So it helped that the show was really good, too. But yes, it brought a tremendous amount of attention. Did it have an effect on us moving to Broadway? Only in that it brought so much attention to the show and people loved the show.
Right.
It would have made it there anyways.
It's really hard to say because I don't know if it would have gotten the same amount of attention. So much of a success of anything really, but especially of a Broadway musical, is about timing. It's about luck and timing. Yeah. And you could never predict that, right? Mm-hmm. You could never predict it. Had Hamilton come out a year earlier or a year later, who knows what would have happened? Because the success of a show isn't always dictated by the quality of a show. And that's I don't mean having anything to do with Hamilton, but there have been amazing shows that did not have particularly good success because just the timing was wrong. And then there are shows that were very mediocre, which I won't mention any names. Not Hamilton. I'm not speaking about that. But shows that were very mediocre that went on to have huge success because the timing was right. Well, there you go.
Cats.
We can all agree.
We saw the movie Cats. We actually
did
and watched
Well, as comedians, I think you had to do
we
that.
talked the entire way through the film. But what I did learn from seeing the movie, which of Cats, which was kind of a punch in the face, was that the reason, most likely, that Cats was such a huge success for so long is that the plot of the movie, of the musical, doesn't actually make any sense. Most of the lyrics and the things that are happening have no relevance to fucking anything.
No.
And so tourists who don't speak English that are coming to America and want to see a Broadway
they
show.
can just go and enjoy
They
it.
could go, and they're going to understand it just as much as someone who does speak English that understands it. And they all get that one song that's like the big hit song. Memory,
which
right?
is beautiful. I actually play that song acoustically in my set a number of times, and I.
We're not here for that.
Don't worry, I'm not going to play it now. But I do introduce the song by saying this is from the worst show ever on Broadway. But it's a beautiful song.
God, that's so funny.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's
so
fantastic.
amazing.
Because the thing that I still don't know is what the
Man.
fuck is a Jellicle Cat?
No one
I watched
knows.
that damn movie and they're singing songs. I'm like, will somebody tell me what this is?
The word has never been used since then, and probably never used before then.
Probably not.
I've only heard it in passing from doing community theater, and I thought it was Angelical Cat.
Angelical, A-N-G-E, yeah.
Except it's not. Like, it goes
Like,
back. I looked it up.
I thought it was like evangelical is what they meant, or something
No,
like
it comes
that.
from the whole T.S. Eliot wrote that book of poems they made this musical off
Sure.
of, which is a weird source material to begin with. A bunch of poems by T.S. Eliot about cats, and apparently he used it in one of the poems, but he didn't really say what it was.
I'm glad they went with those poems rather than the jerking off in the forest poems, because that's a whole other musical.
That's a weird musical.
That's the one I'm working on.
That's a great show. And Lloyd Webber also writing the lyrics and music, I believe.
Spunk in the Forest. A smash Broadway hit.
Spunk in the Forest. Hey, Matt, before we continue the show, we really have something big that we have to announce. I have to announce it right now.
Okay.
It's a big deal. 2020 is a very exciting year. It's a big year, buddy, because it's the 75th anniversary.
Of what?
75 years old.
Who's 75?
I'll tell you who's 75.
It's not William Shatner.
No.
It's not George Takei.
No?
It's not Leonard Nimoy.
It's Sennheiser.
Sennheiser. Oh.
Sennheiser, the microphone and audio company, the company that provides our amazing microphones and our incredible headphones that makes us sound so incredibly
Yeah, we
amazing.
just got a whole new setup. These MD42 microphones, the HD25 headphones. These things are awesome.
I love them. And these guys, they're the top. This is top tier microphones, top tier headphones. If you are looking for audio equipment, if you're a singer songwriter, if you're a voiceover actor, if you're trying to get into the podcast game, Sennheiser is the way to go. If you're an audio engineer, don't go anywhere else. Go straight to Sennheiser. If you have someone in your life that loves audio, this is the place to do it. Sennheiser's the way to go. Go to Sennheiser.com. That's Sennheiser.com. And all right, let's get back to the show. Well, I mean, Rent was based on a source material. It has La Boheme kind of as a
yes. I
source
mean, it's
material?
loosely based on it. Yes, yeah. The characters are loosely based, and a similar situation in that a couple of them were dying of in that show it was consumption, tuberculosis. I believe is consumption. So yes, there was definitely similarities, and Roger was Rodolfo, Mimi was Mimi. You know what I mean? So there was definitely a connection there.
It's crazy, man. When we walked into the building, we ran into a couple different people of different age groups that were like that were freaking out that you were here. It's got to be kind of a fascinating thing to be a piece of musical theater history like real musical theater history, like where it's like a piece that like is studied and people sing songs from it in school. They'll be singing it forever, man. Like, what does that feel like? Do you ever get and it's not like when we talk about the sheet music and the book of it. I remember that book. I wore that damn book out. Like, your face is right on the cover of that thing. I know. Look at me. What is it like to have been part of something that's so unbelievably epic? Is it hard sometimes?
It's not hard. It's that aspect of it is not hard. I mean, it's such an honor to be part of something like that. And part of something, look, you could be part of something and be infamous. You could be famous for something silly. You could be famous for a lot of reasons, but not that I'm famous, but you could be known for things that are of less quality, but to be part of something that has had such a positive effect on all the people that are fans of it, is I couldn't ask for a bigger honor. You know what I mean? It's phenomenal. Especially somebody growing up. I mean, my connection to the character of Roger is actually really sort of like eerie in a way, because I was that guy. I was that rock singer who wanted to write one great song, and here I am playing this character whose main song in the show is about wanting to write one great song, you know. And now that's like my song, you know what I mean? That song
that is your great
about
song.
writing one great song is now my song that I sing ad nauseum, you know what I mean? Like, so, but it's a huge honor, and what I really love is people who have seen the movie and have never seen the stage production and are as affected by the movie as people were by the stage production. Not that the movie is nearly as good as the stage production, but it has a particular connection to me in that when I was growing up, the movie version of Hair was such... it meant so much to me. I had such a connection to it. I watched it hundreds of times. It really, really changed my life in a lot of ways. And I had never and still have never seen a stage production of Hair. Wow. But just that movie, it did so much for me.
Yeah,
and
Stephen went for Hair, and they told him he was wrong for it, too.
There's no bald people in Hair.
There's no bald people in Hair.
And so now I have a lot of kids coming up to me, again, who've only seen the movie. And also the movie of Hair had a similar response by the public as Rent did. It's a lot of the original fans kind of didn't like it. It was moderately, moderately reviewed by the critics. Like, so it was like it had a very similar parallel path to the Rent film.
Well, I got to work with Tim Weil.
Oh my God, yeah.
I spent 2 years working with Tim on Shrek the musical on Broadway because I was Shrek.
You were
for all the workshops and readings all the way up till right before it went on Broadway.
God, and then Big Star Brian.
Oh yeah, Star Brian happens. But
sorry about that.
No. Hey, life is weird. Tim, though, this is a two-parter story. So real quick, so I go in, I get to New York. We're at 42nd Street Studios, and I have to go and meet with Tim Weil, the musical director of Rent, who worked on it since the beginning, early, right? He was he was orchestrator and stuff like this.
Yeah,
right?
He was the musical director from the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I go in to meet with him, and he goes, "All right, I need to hear your range." And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "What do you want to sing?" And I go, "I'll do One Song Glory from Rent." And he goes, "Are you sure that that's the song you want to do?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "What? Why would you pick that song?" And I go, "'Cause I fucking rule at it."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay." And he sits down, he plays it, and I sing it, and he goes, "Oh, thank God that went well." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because I'm the musical director of Rent. I've been the musical director of Rent since the beginning." And I was like, oh my God, I did not know that at all. And I was like sweating and panicking and stuff. But that was like our first introduction to each other,
great,
as which was great.
Yeah.
But he told me Rent the musical we talked about the movie, and he said, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but this is what he said. He said that an example of the studio not getting something right was at the wrap party. They had trash barrels on fire as decoration.
I have to be honest with you. I have no memory of that.
Okay, so that's he just said that Hollywoodizing poverty in or like a movie about real poverty and people going through really difficult times was a very hard thing to make happen. Like, do you feel like that there was some challenges in that? Is that where the problem was?
Well,
or problems were possibly.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do something really unfortunate on a podcast. Hello there.
You're good.
So, yes, that was a problem. And it was a problem because I think that there was a little bit of... I think that Chris Columbus, the director, was a little bit at odds with the studio in the sense that I think Chris wanted to make a little bit of an edgier movie, and I think the studio wanted a little bit more of a family-friendly movie. And so... it's hard to make that subject matter family friendly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're talking about drug addiction and dying of AIDS and all, and poverty and all. Yeah. So, So I think that's where the tone of the movie got a little lost. And it got a little muddy there.
Do you ever feel like you were a little left out when he went on to make Harry Potter, and you're like, why am I not in this movie making billions in residuals?
It would have been nice to have done something else with Chris Columbus, but I have to say that he was extremely supportive of me, and actually, naively so, thought I was going to go on to become a movie star. So
no, that's fantastic.
Well, you are in a terrific movie that we mentioned, SLC Punk. Fantastic film.
I actually filmed that way before Rent. That was it. That was like, way before Rent, the movie.
Yeah.
I filmed that. I think that was James Marandino, the director. Actually, for those of you who don't know, there is a sequel called SLC Punk 2.
Yeah.
But anyway. We don't have to talk about that
Came
one.
out relatively recently.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. That was, I think, probably around 2000 or maybe even the late 90s, because I think School of Rock was like early 2000s. So, and I did that first. That was my first movie.
Yeah, that movie really resonated with me because I was in Colorado and I was in the punk scene in high school.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't believe they made this type of punk experience into a film.
Yeah, I wasn't into that whole scene, so I didn't know if it was going to resonate with that part of the subculture.
Well, it was like when I saw the movie poster the first time, I folded my arms and was like, fuck those guys. They don't know what it's like. But then I saw it,
very punk rock.
I was like, actually, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
That's
a
great
bunch of
movie.
posers.
It's a badass movie.
Yeah, everyone was
That's
a
always the
poser
biggest
to me.
insult from any punks that I've ever known. Like, you're a poser.
You're a poser.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
Metal, too. You don't want to be a poser.
Yeah.
I was a pretty big metal poser when I first.
Yes.
Yeah.
You still are.
I still am.
You'll wear a Metallica
Spandex.
T-shirt. And I'll be like, name 2 songs.
I only have one of of those left. I have the Led Zeppelin one.
Yeah, okay, name 3 Led Zeppelin songs.
I have no idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, no. It was because, I would go to Hot Topic, and I'd be like, hey, Hot Topic, you got any big fat guy clothes? And then they'd go, yeah, we got this, Dropkick Murphys shirt. And I'd go, great. And then I'd wear it, and I didn't know very many people in L.A. when I first moved here, so I'd walk around wearing a Dropkick Murphys shirt. People would come up to me and be like, fuck yeah, Dropkick Murphys. And I'd be like, totally.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, I have a new friend, Matt was the first one to challenge me. Matt was the first
at
one.
Hot Topic, they sell Glickman shirts.
They do. They have shirts with my face on it.
Speaking of shirts that you don't know what the meaning is, so we were doing a promotional appearance for the movie of Rent, and I forget what TV show we went on. It must have been like Good Morning America or something, and we went and did a live performance. And I was wearing a T-shirt that I had no idea what it actually meant. I just thought it was kind of a cool T-shirt, and it said it was like an advertisement for a fake restaurant called Dirty Sanchez.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know what that meant.
Oh my god!
And I went on TV and I wore this shirt, and Anthony Rapp,
and everyone just thinks you're cool as hell.
Yeah, Anthony was like laughing because he thought I knew what it meant and that I was wearing it on purpose. And then afterwards we had a conversation. And he was like, "Do you know what that is?" And I didn't, and of course, I was mortified.
I love in the video game series Grand Theft Auto.
I thought you were just about to say the Rent video game. I was like,
I've not played it yet. I don't know
I'll play that.
if it's good, but in the Grand Theft Auto video games, there's a dirt bike called the Dirty Sanchez.
Hey, Matt, before we continue this show, I got to talk about something that it's crucial to our show. If it wasn't for this company, we wouldn't really have a show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Zoom. Okay, Zoom recorders, the Zoom Corporation, they provide us with one of the damn coolest things on the market. What are we recording our show on?
We're recording right now on a Zoom L8.
Oh, it's so awesome.
It's so cool.
It's so beautiful. We can do anything with this thing. Now, Zoom was established in Tokyo. It's based in Tokyo, and they have been equipping creators around the world, innovators in audio equipment. These guys just don't stop. Whether you're a classically trained pianist or a run-and-gun filmmaker, they have the item for you, the recorder for you. It will fit in your bag, and it will fit in your budget. And we've gotten to record our show all over the damn world.
Epcot Center, LA Convention Center, Ed Asner's house.
Oh, my God. So cool. So check out zoom-na.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
I want to take before we completely get off of Rent. Yeah. I do want to kind of walk around with you through the cast just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're so phenomenal, and you've known so many of them, for such a long
time,
period of time.
25 years.
Let's go from Taye Diggs.
Taye Diggs is probably one of the funniest people I've ever met.
How so?
He just has such a sarcastic, sardonic, wry sense of humor, and he's very courageous in the types of jokes that he'll make, and he's he'll say things where you're like, oh my God, did you just say that? And like, and I mean, if you saw him host what he just hosted something, and he did this little quick thing with the Asian comedian girl, I forget her name. She's got a big show now, and
Awkwafina.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it was her. And they were talking in the audience. He was like, I'm a big fan of yours. And he was like, really? Name 2 movies I've been in. and this is on live TV. Yeah. And she was like, God. And he's like, that's okay. I'll wait. Wow. That kind of,
that's great.
Yes.
Wow.
And so he makes me laugh. And quite frankly, he belongs on a comedy. He does all these dramas and he's great at it, but he really needs to be doing more comedy because he's just so damn funny.
I love it.
He follows everybody on Twitter.
Does he?
Yes. Everybody.
Yeah.
He follows me on Twitter.
He follows like 2 million people.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty awesome. What about Wilson Jermaine Heredia?
Yes. Wilson is a very talented, sort of somewhat scatterbrained, but very sort of like one of those loving, spiritual kind of guys. And an incredible friend. He was very green as I was when he did Rent, and Jesse Martin kind of had to drag him around that stage to,
Really?
he's very he's sort of ADD-ish.
Yeah.
So one of the main things I remember from our rehearsal process was Michael Greif going, Wilson, over here, Wilson, because Wilson would just be like, kind of like,
God.
Sort of like the kid in the outfield, like, looking at the daisies and not having any idea that the ball's coming right towards him.
Oh my God, dude, it's so funny you say that. Like, I remember when we had Jay Rodriguez on our show. He did the live show here at the Improv, and he sang. What did he say? He sang a little bit of Seasons of Love on stage, and he was very young when he was in the show. Like, I think he was like...
He was a teenager.
Yeah. Okay, Anthony Rapp.
Anthony Rapp, one of my best friends. We still do performances together.
I saw that on your Instagram. You guys are going
we do things
shows
all the time. And he's the person that him and Jesse Martin are the 2 people that I attribute whatever success I had in that show was because of those 2. And sort of learning from them, watching them, the support from them, the advice from them, because I had never, done a production. I had never acted before. And they were just so generous with me, and we just became really, really close. Jesse, Anthony, and I shared a dressing room, which was not much bigger than this table. And we bonded, and he's the kind of guy that, like, his temperament is the exact opposite of mine. Like, Anthony is always like extremely thoughtful and thinks about things and never lets things rattle him. And I've rarely seen him get angry. I was the opposite of all of that. You know what I mean? Like, we were Felix and Oscar in a lot of ways, and we hit it off. We still do.
What about Daphne Rubin Vega?
Daphne and I fell in love. Daphne and I had we fell in love with each other, and what you saw on stage in many ways was real.
Wow.
Did
you guys have an actual?
It was never like actually official. Like, we were never actually, because like it never timed out. Like, when I was single, she wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, and so like by the time I was single, she had met her now husband Tommy. So there was a moment there where a brief amount of time where we were both single, and we were we spent a lot of time with each other on stage, obviously, and off. But yeah, it never never quite, lined up with each other.
Me and Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Same exact.
Same
So,
thing.
so similar.
Timing never
Always
worked out.
seeing someone, and I'm never ever seeing anyone. One of these days, it'll time out.
It'll time out just right. It will.
But again, one of the funniest people I ever met, one of the biggest, most incredible actresses I've ever met, just adored her. I still do.
Now, doing that show, because it was your first time doing a Broadway show and then doing, acting and all this kind of stuff, were you nervous, like being on stage?
I never was. And interestingly enough, there was always something missing in my heart when I would play in a rock band all of those years and be like the front man of the rock band. There was always something that didn't feel quite right. And I could never quite put my finger on it. And once I started doing musical theater, from the second I walked out on that stage, it felt so comfortable. It felt so right. And I still can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, I think part of it was that I was never comfortable. I mean, I'm much more comfortable now, but I was never comfortable being myself on a stage. You know what I mean? And the most awkward thing, and a lot of singers and bands will tell you that, like, unless you're Bono, like, the most awkward thing is the in-between songs. You know what I mean? The sort of the patter of trying to keep an audience wrapped in what you're doing. And I don't mean W-R-A-P-P, but like wrapped in R-A-P. Trying to keep an audience's attention in between songs is the most difficult thing to do, especially when you're sort of like just a kid, like who didn't have anything particularly interesting happen to them.
You don't have like a huge fan base built in already. You
Exactly.
just at some club and they're
nothing,
like, just play a song.
And nothing interesting happened to me in my life. And, I didn't grow up sort of struggling. And I just didn't have anything to say,
We're not here for that.
Yeah.
We want more songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Shut up and sing. And that's what I was always like. Just forget it. Just play the songs,
Right.
And so once I got to go on stage and be somebody else, it really felt much more comfortable.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
I always kind of felt like that was the thing with guys like Alice Cooper, and that it's like, oh, you put on a persona.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, it's like a character they're doing.
Yeah.
And I always wanted a character, but never really had one.
Yeah.
I have a Rent question.
Yeah, go
I'd like
ahead.
to ask. So, Stephen made me watch the Fox Live Rent that they did.
Yeah.
Did you watch that? Do you have any thoughts on how that production was?
Were you there?
I was there. They assembled the original cast to do an appearance at the end of it.
That seems unwise to me.
And it was great. And the best thing about it was the 15 of us getting back together.
Yeah.
Because
that's the one that was live but not really live because they had some broadcast problem and
what
guy,
happened
he
was
broke his leg or
the
something?
guy playing Roger broke his ankle during the first. They did two passes of it.
Yeah.
They did, and so in the event that something bad would happen, and he broke his ankle at the very end of the show on the first pass, and of course all I heard the next sort of 2
was like,
days
why did you
was like,
jump in?
"Hey, you're gonna go and do it." I was like, "Okay, yeah, I heard that 50 times already."
Wow.
But yeah, so they ended up airing that version or I forget what
The
they
dress
did.
It was like a
rehearsal,
mix. I remember they some of it was live and some of it was the pre-recorded.
Yeah,
and
but I mean, the fact is that it really was live. It was all live. It's just I mean, they had an audience. It was a live show. It's just you didn't see some of it actually happening that night. You just saw the live version that happened the night before.
Here's what I'll say about that show, because I watched it live, and I've watched every musical that a network has done since they started doing them. I watched The Wiz live.
Yeah.
I've seen them all.
Yeah.
Here's how I feel about it.
What a weird brag.
I watch all the live musicals. No. It is a very the way that they staged it is very badass, because doing it on a soundstage like that, building it out where you have basically a mini city.
Yeah.
It's the same way that they did Jesus Christ Superstar when they did that with John Legend, and which was a fantastic move. It was really cool. It looked really neat.
Yeah.
What I did learn from seeing it though is young people, when you're young. And when I was a kid and I saw Rent, I remember, or teenager and saw Rent, and lived in New York and saw Rent, I remember that it filled every bone in my body with this is what I'm living. Yeah. This is what even if it wasn't. Yeah. It felt like you were a part of it.
Yeah.
And then as an adult watching it, who does pay rent, it is a very it felt totally different. Where I was like, why aren't these kids paying rent?
Like
I watch these kids that don't pay rent. How lucky are they?
We were on Instagram Live when we watched it, and I kept saying, this show should be called Eviction. Just round up these losers and kick them out.
Well, as with most musical theater, there is a suspension of disbelief that you have to accept when you even go into any show when you see musical theater.
I think that has a lot to do with the acting, though, of the performance, like the performance.
Maybe I don't want to comment.
I'm not.
Of course.
I'm not trying to get you to say
I'll tell you what my
that.
problem with it was. My biggest problem, and just to mention the set, just to go back for a second, I did think it was great. Also, what it was not great at was for the people in the room, because you only got to see what was directly in front of you. When they went and did a scene in one of these other sort of sets, it was like on the other side, and you couldn't see it. You know what I mean? So it would never work for a real live audience. It was great for the TV audience and for the TV audience at home, but it would never work in a real live situation because you couldn't see the whole show. You only saw the bits and pieces that were right in front of you.
That's the same problem that they had with Hairspray when they did the Hairspray Live with like Ariana Grande and all these amazing people. Is every single scene from the show was done basically on a different soundstage at Universal with an entirely different audience. So you can't move the entire audience to the next thing.
You can't. Right. But my biggest problem was that they had the cast interacting with the audience as if it was some sort of rock concert, and they had them sort of slapping hands with people and really interacting with the audience, and I wasn't down with that. Because then that really blurred that line between actor and character. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they'd be the character of Mark was playing Mark, and then all of a sudden the audience would go nuts and he'd go over and slap hands with him, and then it became Jordan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was
there
was
weird.
A blurring of that line, and I wasn't down with that.
That's not a good move. Yeah, because I saw you and Anthony in Rent on Broadway when I was working on Shrek. I went to go watch the show, and halfway through the first act, there's something emotional that happens, and I was a mess. And I'm not just saying that. I could not deal with it. Yeah. It was a lot of had a lot of emotional shit going on watching you guys do that show. And it was a show. It wasn't a rock concert. It wasn't the best hits of or whatever. No, I didn't feel like I was in the show with you. I was sitting in an audience watching you guys do this very personal thing. Yeah. And it was phenomenal. Yeah. And I feel like, it's one of those magical things that it's great that you were a part of something, so and that you are a part of something.
Yeah,
so incredible
and again, I will always be connected to that show. I've done 9 Broadway musicals since then, and that's still the one that I.
What other Broadway musicals have you done? I know you did Aida,
Cabaret, Chicago, Something Rotten. Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman?
Disaster, yes.
When did they do Pretty Woman on Broadway?
It ran for a year, and it was last year.
Were you the Richard Gere part?
I was, but I wasn't I came in and did it as sort of a cameo appearance when the guy playing it had to go on vacation. They had come to me a long time ago.
He had to go on vacation.
I'm sorry, no, he didn't have to.
He was forced to go on vacation.
No, I think he came out and did pilot season or something. You know what I mean? And, but they had actually
he pulled a pivot.
Yeah, They asked me a long time ago if I wanted to play that part, and I was doing Something Rotten on the national tour, and I couldn't leave the tour to go do that. So.
Now, I have a question about Broadway just in general, because you were nominated for a Tony for Rent.
Yeah.
Who won that year? Do you remember?
For that category, Nathan Lane.
Okay.
For the producers?
No, for Something Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Oh, okay, so that brings up a thing. So
all right.
I know with the Tonys, they have this thing where they're you can only win the first year the show comes out, and then if your show runs for 3 years, you're not eligible anymore.
Correct.
But a show like that, Something Funny Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Yes.
Came out in the 50s,
right?
And then it goes away, and then they bring it back, and all of a sudden you can win again.
That is A very good point,
Well,
Mr. Walker.
because the show itself cannot be nominated for Best Musical, can only be nominated for Best Revival. But the actors who are performing in that revival can compete in the Best Actors category.
That's bullshit.
Well-
I'm going to write a letter. No, I know.
That's the way it's always been.
I know.
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah. So, so
I mean,
that's the way that
the
works.
Annie Awards, the Animation Awards, does Best Actor or Actress in a Film. That's like one of their categories. So it's like one award goes to either a man or woman for any voice work
That's
that could have been
bizarre.
done. Yeah, they just.
I mean, I get men and women competing in many things together, but sure, they should have their own categories in acting. Yeah,
probably.
Well, when they're limited, when you figured like the roles are probably dominated by men in terms of just volume.
Yeah.
They hire way more men than they do women. It's not really.
The thing that curved it. I don't know if this is 100% true, but what I've heard, the reason that went that way was because Brad Bird played a woman in The Incredibles.
Yeah.
So it's like if you
they didn't know which category to put him in, and
then
they're
where's
like,
that
let's just make it
go?
general.
Also, it's like in with I mean, you go the other way.
Look at
The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Like you can't
Yardley Smith.
Yeah, or not Yardley Smith.
Oh no, what's her name?
The one who plays
Bart.
Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
It's like you can't if it's best actor. It's like
how does that fit in?
How does that fit in?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
so
like anybody on Bob's Burgers, they're all like opposites.
Serious. It's all opposites. So I mean, lots of that's always a thing. Where are you performing next? And do you live in LA?
I do. I live in Los Angeles.
What's your address?
It's actually very close to where we are right now.
Oh, great.
I've been out here since 2007. My kids have grown up out here. I have a son going to college next year.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't have any performances coming up in the near future. I'm actually teaching a class at UCLA in lyric and music, text and lyric interpretation.
Oh my God!
So I'm teaching a class there this semester, which is awesome. I'm going to be doing some directing. I have some directing projects that I'm working on, and pilot season is coming up, so I'll be hitting that ground running. Although I cannot audition in the room for television. I have a mental problem where like I get into the room and I can't do anything other than panic. So
really,
yeah. So I have to put myself on tape at home.
So are there any shrinks out there listening right now?
Oh, believe me, I go to one. It doesn't help. 3 antidepressants and a shrink does not help. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that fucking
the beta blockers aren't doing it?
I can audition for musical theater, fine. And I can audition for a callback on TV. I just can't go in that first audition.
That initial one.
I panic too badly. So I would rather have less of a chance with a good tape than no chance being in the room.
I auditioned one time. I'll make this very quick, but I auditioned one time for Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway, and it was about 15 fat guys. We were all sitting around in the room together, and you know how they do this thing sometimes. Guys will try to pair up and be like, "Oh, what's up, man? Good to see you." Even if they don't know you, they'll do it. Oh, good to see you, man. Oh yeah, hey, I heard you killed that audition the other day.
Yeah.
They'll just do it just to make everyone else feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I was sitting in this room, and this dude across from me goes, "Hey man, what's up, dude? How you been?" And I go, "Fine." And he goes, "Long time, man. I haven't seen you in quite a while, man. Hey, I heard you killed that audition the other day." And I go, "Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about." And he goes, "No, I mean, that's the word on the street about you, where did I see you and I go, "Look, I know what you're trying to do, and you're not going to do this to me." And he goes, "What am I trying to do?" I go, "You're trying to like team up with me so that everyone else, all these other guys that we're all sitting next to," and I did this loud. I go, "All these other guys in this room are going to feel like they're less than, okay? Like they're not even supposed to be here. Like they shouldn't have even showed up because they're not part of the inner circle of Broadway actors." Well, guess what, buddy? Like that's just not how I fucking roll, okay? Like we all have just as much of a chance to get cast today.
So go sit back down.
And go, I don't even know you. And the guy goes, "No, your name's Steven. I'm Greg. You were at my house for New Year's. You're Sarah's boyfriend." And I go,
Dick.
Greg.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
And scene.
Yeah, scene. Yeah, 100% true.
That is
100%.
hysterical.
Yeah, I'm not good at those. Those are rough.
Yeah.
Auditions are
Well,
tricky.
you mentioned Jesus Christ Superstar. So I went in for the role of Judas, and so it was just me and Brandon Victor Dixon, who I know he's a sweetheart. But he went in before me, and I'm sitting there, and this is nothing against him. He's totally brilliant, but I can hear his audition through the door, and I'm like, yeah, he sounds a little flat on that note. And I'm thinking to myself, he'll never get this. He'll never get this. You know what I mean? And lo and behold, they cast him.
Wow.
And he was awesome. I have to say, he was much better on the show than he was in the audition. But clearly, he was good enough in the audition to get the part. But yeah, So
Is there a part is there a part in musical theater or in something else that you've always wanted to play that you haven't gotten to do yet?
Well, as I've done more musical theater over the years, I've become much more interested in doing much more musical theater-y type roles. You know what I mean? Like, because for a number of years I was known as like the Broadway rock guy. Yeah. And I really wanted to break out of that. So I just did The Music Man in
What?
Yeah, which was awesome. I
Wait,
had the
Harold
best
Hill?
time. Yes, of
Oh my
course.
God, of
Yes,
course.
absolutely.
Come on.
I loved it. I had the best time.
Only shows that have numbers in the titles of songs. 76 trombones.
Oh,
That's
I
right.
love that.
76
That's it.
trombones. Yeah. So, but I would love to play Jean Valjean in Les Mis.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get that.
I would love to play the Phantom in Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, why has that not happened?
You know what? I auditioned 10 times for that show. I finally got in front of Cameron McIntosh and Hal Prince. And I just think that they thought I still had a little bit too much edge to my voice. Like, they really want an opera-sounding guy in that part. And so, although interestingly enough, Paul Stanley from Kiss played that role in some production, like up in Canada. But yeah, so I just don't think that they quite saw me as opera enough. You know? I can only get so close. You know what I mean, in terms of like that style of singing, and I can get pretty close, but not for them in that part.
Well, I think you're I think you're phenomenal in everything you do.
Oh, thank you.
I think and thank you for coming to my defense on Instagram.
Absolutely, I was appalled by that story.
Maybe at some point, the people who listen, you guys just go check out at Stephen Glickman, STEPHEN Glickman on Instagram. You'll see the story. It's a picture.
You know what?
Of
If you have me on your live podcast, you and I could sing What You Own. We'll do what
Get
you
out
own.
of here!
Yes, of course.
No,
Yes.
Are you serious?
Absolutely.
Oh man, that's the greatest thing that's ever. Would you really come do the live show?
Of course.
Oh my God, let's
Yes.
book the hell out of that.
Absolutely. I'll sing Memory from Cats.
Oh my God!
Yes, please.
Yes,
We're not here for that. We'll make sure and invite that guy.
I love it. Where can people find you, Adam? Where can people find you?
I'm at 8525. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, come to UCLA and you can watch me teach a class.
Oh, I will.
I
will.
Right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to say I got another semester with my older son before he leaves for college, and I'm just trying to be around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't. This is all I got left.
No, I mean on social media.
Where
Where
do
can
people
people find you on social?
You can find me on Instagram. That's really where I do most of my lurking is and stalking is on Instagram.
You're not a TikToker?
I'm not a TikToker, and I'm not really. I do a little Facebook. I got off of there a number of years ago because I got myself into some trouble. I'll just tell you a quick story really quick before we leave. So right around the time when they were doing Spider-Man. They were doing Spider-Man on Broadway. And you'll remember that a lot of people
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster. And a lot of
Spider-Man,
people
turn off the dark.
That's right. Yeah. And a lot of so a lot of people were getting hurt during the the rehearsal process. A lot of the were getting really hurt,
like
breaking
falling on their head
bones
and
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. And so Julie Taymor was the director of that show, and I was on tour with Anthony Rapp. We were doing a tour in Japan. We were doing like our own show and doing a tour of Japan. And I had a little too much to drink, and I was sitting in my hotel room, and I was on Facebook, and like the dude who got hurt like the worst, had just gotten hurt, and I went on Facebook and I said, very tongue in cheek, but I said, Julie Taymor should be arrested for assault, as the director, and so. I thought it was funny. Many people didn't think it was funny. And the Associated Press and CNN picked it up.
Okay.
And so the next morning I'm at breakfast in the hotel in Japan, and on the ticker going across on CNN on the bottom was Broadway star Adam Pascal says Julie Taymor should be arrested for assault. I can't speak. Should be arrested for assault. And I was like, that was a joke. You're taking it out of context.
No.
It's hard. Yeah. So that took me out of the running of taking over for Scar, the Lion King.
Yeah.
So certainly. So,
man.
I bet though, if she sends you a death threat, it's going to be the most beautiful looking.
It certainly
letter that
will,
you'll
and
ever
it would
get.
be on and it would be on some sort of puppet postcard that you would open it up and
lot
it would
of
move by itself.
Twigs and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Black, where can people find you on the social medias?
On all social media at Mike Black Attack, and that's it. That's all you have to do.
Oh, just a Mike Black Attack everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
You should check it, especially the.
If you like toys.
If you like toys, he's got a lot of toys.
Yeah.
That
There are pictures of them everywhere on his social media.
yeah.
Toys and working out.
Well, a lot of working out.
Fighting
now.
crime.
Recently. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like enough
fighting
already.
crime. Yeah.
It's enough already.
All right, Matt Walker, where can people find you?
Links to everything at funnymat.com, or if you want to tell me that Cats is the best movie you've ever seen, you can do that at mattwalkersucks.com.
Yeah, and then you should throw your computer in the ocean because no one will believe you.
Yeah.
You can always get me at Stephen Glickman, STPHEN, Glickman on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. I am the resident.
What is TikTok? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
It's the new social thing.
It's
like what Vine used to be.
It's what all the kinder like.
It's from China, and it's got like 2 billion users.
Isn't everything from China?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very popular app with the young people.
Okay.
The young people.
Ask your son.
Yes.
He'll tell
I
you.
will.
Yeah, he probably.
I have a
uses it.
16-year-old also.
Yeah.
I'll ask him.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, he's on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget to subscribe to the Nighttime Show podcast and share it with your friends. This is an extraordinary, wonderful thing
Thank you,
that you
Stephen.
came to
I'm
do
glad
this.
we connected.
You're
Thank
one
you.
of my heroes
That
in
is so
the
nice of
musical
you to
theater
say.
world,
Thank you very
and it's
much.
an honor to get to sit with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Yeah.